Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. So I'm going to be going over my tight end tier list. So I'm breaking the tight ends into about 5 tiers, touching on roughly 15 tight ends that I think are really worth highlighting and guys that we're looking to draft this season. I want to apologize for the slight delay in getting this video out. I had some unexpected travel for work, so I wasn't able to record videos for a few days. So this one's coming out a little bit later, but I'll make up for it. I'll get a couple videos out here in the next several days. So always fun making these videos. I'll follow this one up with a wide receiver tier list, and that will close off our tier list videos. If you guys haven't watched the quarterback or the running back video, I highly recommend you go do that. Those were super fun to make. I think they're super insightful as well, and it's always fun to sort of look and see how we're really breaking up these players into tiers. I personally find that tier-based rankings are the best way to go into your draft. It really helps you identify where drop-offs are at key positions, helps you make sure that you're picking the optimal position at each draft pick you make. So a lot of fun, super useful, and if there's any tight ends I didn't mention here, feel free to let me know in the comments. If you have any disagreements or any of that, let me know as well. I love interacting with you guys there. Going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, with that, let's get into the first tight end group here. So I'll start things off with tier one. These are the elite tight ends for me, and I think there's 3 tight ends that we can put into this category this season. I'll start things off with Trey McBride, who is going as the tight end 3 by consensus ADP, going in the late 4th round at 46th overall. I currently have him statted out as my tight end 4, but I personally think there's a very real chance he finishes as the tight end 1, and that's why he made it into this list. He is my favorite value of the 3 tight ends on this list. I think he clearly established himself as an elite player, and I'm super excited to see what he does this season with a full off season with Kyler Murray. Having some help opposite side of him with Marvin Harrison over there should open up this offense. There should be more scoring opportunities. I'm super excited about Trey McBride this season. He's honestly a tight end that I'm looking to leave most of my drafts with. So super stoked about him. We're going to talk about him in some bold prediction videos probably 2 or 3 days from now as well. So stay tuned for that. But super excited about Trey McBride this season. Up next, we've got Sam Laporta. Obviously, have to put him in the elite tier here. He finished as the tight end 1 as a rookie last season. That is unheard of. Rookie tight ends coming into the NFL and performing at a high level is just extremely rare. So obviously, there's plenty of optimism and reason to be excited about what he's going to do this upcoming season. He's statted out as my tight end 1. However, I still just don't necessarily love the value having to take him ahead of both Kelce and Trey McBride. I think there's a very good chance that Laporta finishes as low as like tight end 5 this season, and obviously that's not a bad finish, but when you're spending a 3rd round draft capital on him, it's just super tough. He did have 10 touchdowns last season. That's a tough number to repeat for a guy that I don't think is super explosive. We're not going to see a lot of big plays out of Sam Laporta over the course of his career. He's just going to be one of those guys who's open underneath, getting the right spots at the right times, and obviously he's a good player. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I don't think he's as explosive as guys like McBride or Kelce are, and for that reason I don't find myself really drafting him right now, but I do like Laporta. He's obviously a really good player. It just comes down to the price tag for me. Then Kelce, going as the tight end 2 off the board, going with the first pick in the 4th round as the 37th pick overall. Stats out as my tight end 2. Obviously, he's an elite player. We saw a bit of a disappointing back half of last season, but then we saw them ramp him up again in the playoffs, and he's clearly still that elite player when he's given that usage. The concern with Kelce is just that they're going to wind down the usage as much as they can while they're still winning games. They obviously, and rightly so, want to keep him healthy for the fantasy or for the NFL playoffs. With that being said, it makes it difficult for Kelce to be like the tight end that's going to lap the field like he has in years past. So I think Kelce can still obviously put up a double-digit touchdown season, can still obviously have a really good year, but I think the days of him being like the locked and loaded tight end 1, just lapping the field, those are over, and he's just sort of in this tier here. But obviously, I don't hate the ADP. A 4th round draft pick on Travis Kelce, that's tough to necessarily be upset about. So I've got no problem drafting him there. It's just I wouldn't expect him to put up some of the seasons that he's put up before. Next up, we're going to move on to tier 2 here, and these are the tight ends that I think, even though I didn't put them in tier 1, that I think have a legitimate shot in case for potentially finishing as the tight end 1 this season. I'll start things off with the most obvious of them. That's going to be Mark Andrews. Obviously, just missed a lot of time last season with injury. He's going as the tight end 4, going 50th overall. But we know how obviously good Mark Andrews is. He is the clear number 1 target in the Ravens offense. He's been the tight end 1 in the past, and he's obviously good enough that if he stays healthy, I think it's very possible he does that again this season. I like the ADP on Mark Andrews. I tend to find myself taking Trey McBride just a little bit ahead of him. So I don't necessarily think he's the best option here, but I do think he's obviously a really good player. I know in my projections I do actually have them dead tied in projections, so you'll see I have them both listed as my tight end 4. You could make one of them my tight end 3, one of them my tight end 4, but They're dead even in my projections actually on the season. It's just that I think Trey McBride's just a little bit better. I like the upside more, a little bit less worried about it, and he goes just a couple picks ahead of him. So I still like the value on McBride more than Mark Andrews, but still a really good player. Getting him in the 5th round, there's nothing wrong with that. After that, we've got Dalton Kincaid going as the tight end 5 off the board, going 52nd overall. So just a couple picks after Mark Andrews. We're sort of seeing pretty clearly that the market thinks that Laporta and Kelce are that clear tier 1, and they sort of cluster McBride, Andrews, and Kincaid all together. I think Kincaid is my least favorite of those 3 players here. I think that paying a mid 5th round price tag is a little bit too high for me. He is my tight end 5, and obviously he could be the tight end 1 this season, so I have no problem drafting him, but I think it's just going to be difficult for him to actually put up those monster numbers. We saw the best weeks for him come last season when Dawson Knox was injured. Dawson Knox is going to be on the field, and that's not to say that Kincaid isn't going to be the clear tight end favorite and the clear favorite target in the tight end room there, but obviously Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, they're going to command targets. Dawson Knox is going to be on the field. A lot of touchdown equity is going to go to Josh Allen on the ground. And we don't know for sure how good this offense is going to be with how many players they lost, I think. And I think we're all expecting this offense to be just as good as it's always been. But there is some obvious downside there, and we haven't really seen it out of Kincaid. So I think of these 4 players here, he's my least favorite value on this list. Next, we've got David Njoku, probably my favorite value in Tier 2, going as the tight end 10, going 99th overall. Stats out as my tight end 6. I think I really do find myself drafting a lot of him this season. He's a guy that could obviously finish as a top 3 tight end. We saw him be the tight end 1 over the back half of last season. Obviously, the main knock on that is that most of that was done with Joe Flacco, not Deshaun Watson. I think he just established himself as clearly a really good player in this offense. I'd be really surprised if the Browns go away from that just because of how clearly talented he is. We've seen and known for years how athletic he is and how much he can do with the ball in hands after the catch, and it was great to see the Browns finally open up their offense a little bit and really involve him, and I don't see any reason for them to not do that going forward, even if Deshaun Watson sucks, and he's probably going to. I still think David Njoku can be a really good value, especially where he's being drafted. So I love Njoku. I'm definitely drafting a lot of him. And then Evan Ingram, he's being drafted as a tight end 7, going 77th overall. He's a really good player. He's just going to be super involved. He's going to catch a lot of passes. I obviously prefer him in PPR formats. The issue is just that touchdown equity doesn't tend to find itself towards him. Obviously, that is something that can vary from season to season, so he could be the tight end 1 if he just got a little bit lucky in the touchdown department. He's going to have the target share to actually get up to that threshold, so if he ends up with 100 catches, 900 yards, and 10 touchdowns, he'll be the tight end 1, and that is something he could do this season, and he's probably the safest of all the players in this list. Obviously, injury can impact any of these guys, but Ingram's been healthy over the course of his career. He's got a locked-in target share. He's operates really close to the line of scrimmage, so his targets don't necessarily vary from week to week. So he's just a really solid, not going to lose you your week kind of guy, and someone that I do think has upside as well. So I like Ingram as well. Don't draft him very much because I like Njoku later, but I think he's a perfectly fine draft pick, and I do like him. Next up, we've got Tier 3 here, and these are guys that I'm obviously calling starters, but just that I don't find myself drafting very much, and guys that I'm not super thrilled about having on my roster. I'll start things off with George Kittle, going as the tight end 8 right now, being drafted 72nd overall. He actually statted out as my tight end 20. I'm going to have to readjust that potentially. I think that's way too low, but the reason he's there, and it's pretty easy to explain, is that this is going to be a run-heavy offense where George Kittle is 4th on the team in target share, potentially 5th if Ricky Pearsall breaks out and is an elite player. So there's just a lot of target competition for an offense that I don't think is going to throw the ball a ton. We've also heard reports recently that George Kittle lost 30 pounds this offseason after a core muscle surgery. Not that I necessarily think that's going to impact him going into the season, but the situation is just not great for him to put up continued success. He's a guy that's obviously going to have a couple of spike weeks over the course of the season because of how talented he is. On the whole, for the course of the season, he's going to lose you a lot of weeks because he really can go out there and catch 0 passes, just with how low the volume is in this offense, how much competition for targets there is, that I don't want to be penciling him into my lineup every single week. And where you're drafting him, you'll feel like you have to do that. So I'm avoiding drafting Kittle. I obviously think he's a better value in best ball where you don't necessarily have to eat those zeros that he's going to give you on occasion, but I'm avoiding him in general. Another player that I tend to find myself avoiding as well is Kyle Pitts, being drafted as a tight end 6, going 61st overall. He's my tight end 8, so I don't think I'm too far off of that ADP there, but I like guys like Evan Ingram more than him. I like guys like David Njoku more than him, and there's just way too many unknowns for me to really buy into spending a late 5th, early 6th round draft pick on this guy. Obviously, Kyle Pitts could come out and be the tight end one. He's probably the only player in this tier that wasn't in tier two that could still do that, but he could also be completely worthless. We saw Jonnu Smith outperform him last season. That's certainly something to be concerned about. On the flip side, we do know that he's extremely talented when healthy. I don't think he was playing at 100% last season. There is reason for optimism with Kirk Cousins coming into Atlanta, so I get why he's being drafted here. It's just not a lottery ticket that I find myself buying very often. And then Jake Ferguson, this is actually someone that I do find myself drafting on occasion, currently being drafted as the tight end 9, and he stats out as my tight end 9. The upside's really there. I think there's a shot here where Ferguson potentially ends up as the number 2 player in targets on this team. Touchdown equity is certainly up in the air there as well. He led the NFL at the tight end position in red zone targets. Didn't necessarily translate to a high-end fantasy performance, but he's utilized where you want him to be utilized. There's not enough target competition in this offense for you to really be scared of him. And as far as getting a tight end this late in the draft that you can probably just pencil in every single week, I think you really could do that. So if you want to wait on tight end and just take Ferguson here, I think that's actually a pretty smart and astute strategy here to do. Next up, we've got tier 4. These are going to be the guys that I'm going to categorize as like solid streaming options or like low-end starters. I'll start things off with Dalton Schultz, currently being drafted as the tight end 13. Stats out as my tight end 17, again, for the same concerns, sort of like with George Kittle, where just the target competition is going to be insane here. You've got 3 potentially NFL caliber wide receiver 1s on this roster between Diggs, Collins, and Tank Dell. Obviously, I do expect CJ Stroud to have a really good season here. There will be spike weeks for Dalton Schultz, and if you want to just wait that long and take him and just play the matchups, you can certainly do that. But Dalton Schultz, I'd be really surprised if he's actually reliably useful just on a week-to-week basis because, like I said, the target share is going to be really tough. But with the price tag you're paying, I've got no problem drafting Dalton Schultz here. Next, we've got Dallas Goedert going as the tight end 12, 113th overall, and he currently stats out as my tight end 11. Similar concerns here. Again, it's target share. You know you're competing with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith for targets in this offense. That's obviously not ideal, but Dallas Goedert's a really talented player. We're just a couple years removed from him putting up some really monster numbers, and if he could ever just find a way to fall in the end zone on a consistent basis, he could really be a high-end performer. And if you remember, just this time last year, you were drafting him as the tight end 5. Kind of had a lost season due to injury. The Eagles' offense didn't perform up to par, but we could potentially see a good bounce back season here for Dallas Goedert. We've got Kellen Moore in the fold. This is an offensive coordinator who tends to feature his tight ends, and I think most of us would agree that Dallas Goedert is a talented player. So there's a world where things break right for Goedert. I don't mind drafting him here, but I tend to find myself, if I waited this long on the tight end, I just don't really find myself targeting these guys because I'd just rather wait later and understand that I'm probably streaming the position anyway. And then last year we've got Pat Freiermuth, currently being drafted as the tight end 14. He's ranked out as my tight end 10 right now. I actually like Freiermuth, the value, quite a bit. I think he's in a good position where he could potentially be the number 2 target in the Steelers' offense. I think he's a good player. We've seen him put up a high touchdown total before, and Russ, despite the inefficiencies of his offense over the last couple of years, he's actually been a pretty good touchdown producer, threw for over 30 touchdowns again last season. We obviously saw Courtland Sutton end up with double-digit touchdowns, so there's that within the range of outcomes here for Freiermuth. He's a decent streaming option as well, so I don't mind drafting Pat here if you want to. And the last tier we'll talk about is just 4 players that I think have some legitimate upside that are going later than the other guys I talked about. I'll start off with TJ Hawkinson. Obviously, we know what the upside is. The big issue here is just that he's coming off of a very serious injury. Probably not going to be ready until about that midway point in the season, but that's why he's being drafted as tight end 16. He stats out as my tight end 18 just because of all the unknowns around him right now. But if you are in an IR league, you can just draft him late, throw him on your IR spot, and then pick up a tight end and stream until he comes back. I think that's a reasonable strategy. I wouldn't necessarily go into your draft planning on doing that, but I think you could do a lot worse. We could see this offense be better than we're expecting it to be. TJ Hawkinson's a really good player. I like the value a little bit, but I wouldn't draft him if you already spent a pretty high draft capital pick on another player. After that, we've got Brock Bowers, currently being drafted as the tight end 11. He stats out as my tight end 14. The concern here is just the offense and the target competition here. Devontae Adams should lead the Raiders in targets, and these are going to be some low-quality targets coming from either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. Not super excited about it. It's really tough. It's generally a safe bet to make against rookie tight ends in the NFL, but we've seen it in the past. Just last season, Sam Laporta was the tight end 1. Brock Bowers is a more talented prospect coming into the NFL than Sam Laporta was, so if you want to take that shot, I don't mind it, but I wouldn't draft him with the intention of just penciling him into your lineup every single week. I think that's going to be a headache. Up next, we got Taysom Hill, currently being drafted as the tight end 28. Just a weird one here with Taysom Hill. I didn't even rank him out as a tight end here, but if your league platform allows you to play him as a tight end, We already saw Juwan Johnson go down a little bit with a foot injury. We don't know when he's going to be back. We're going to see Taysom Hill be fantasy relevant again in leagues. You can play him at the tight end spot. He's going to get touches out of the backfield. He's going to be involved as a pass catcher, and he's going to score some short yardage touchdowns again this season. I think if you really have to wait on the position, you could just take him in every single league, every single year. He's a waiver wire pickup that ends up being a good performer at the tight end position. You could do a lot worse there. And then Cole Kmet, currently being drafted as the tight end 15. He stats out as my tight end 21. Again, the target competition's insane between, obviously, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. But Cole Kmet's a really good player, and if Caleb Williams can come out and be like a CJ Stroud quality rookie in the NFL, we could see Cole Kmet actually put up some pretty big numbers. So if you want to take a bet on the Bears offense, think Cole Kmet's a good player, it could work out here for you. So that'll do it for the tight end tier list. Up next, I'll be going over my wide receiver tiers. I saved that video for last because that video is going to be a very long one. I'm going to touch on about 50 wide receivers. I won't be shocked if that video ends up being 45 minutes long, so I wanted to save that one for last just because really wanted to touch on as many players as I could there without sort of spending too little time just sort of trying to rush through that video. So stay tuned for that one. That one's going to be a lot of fun. After that, I'm going to go over my 5 bold predictions for this season. Then I'll get into some general draft strategy stuff, talk about different ADPs on different platforms, keep you guys up to date with all the news and everything. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. We've got a lot of fresh content coming over the next couple of months. If you guys want to make sure you don't miss any of it, just make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's all free. I'm here to help you as much as I can. And we got a long way to go before draft season, and then we get into the regular season. And I'm going to be here that whole time to help you guys win your fantasy championships this season. So super excited about that. One other note I'll make here is there've been some questions about the Listener League. I will be making an announcement about that sometime in the next week or so stay tuned for that. There will be 10 open spots because myself and the winner from last season will be in it. And then there will be 10 open spots beyond that. So stay tuned for that announcement. It should be a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun last season, and I'm excited to keep that going. So appreciate all you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and stay tuned for more videos. So appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you later. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.